That's what this document is promoting for their agenda of sustainability. That's not somewhere I want to go at all, nor do I think most people listening to this. It's all about Agenda 2030. Islam, radical Islam, migration, refugees are all symptoms of Agenda 2030. It is the bigger plan.
Too many refugees spend years, if not decades, in exile. Surviving on humanitarian assistance and short-term support is not sustainable. To thrive, not just survive, refugees need opportunities to join and strengthen the fabric of the communities that host them.
So I've always said we need to remobilise, knowing we've got to realise we're all being merged for a reason. We're all being forced together for a reason. As you know, wars are as manufactured as boy bands. They're manipulated, they're propagated, financed on both sides, and then the benefactors reap the rewards afterwards. The collateral damage is just that, collateral damage. So 2030 will mean a system that will have to be on such socialistic values that it will make Venezuela look like a utopia. That is what is worrying about this. No one seems to be really talking about it. We seem to just be talking about Islam. We need to bring the establishment to an account for a document that is legally non-binding, that has to be totally made aware to people. But if people wonder why they want us to remain in Europe, it's documents like this that tell you why. This document is part of a colluding paper constructed by the cabal. The cabal is the 1%, the technocrats, the oligarchs, the Brussels mafioso is just one element of this grand scheme for depopulation and sustainable development. Satanistic in value, totally removed emotionally, spiritually and physically from the average human being, but it's totally understandable why the average human being is reacting the way it is. We need to hit a new consciousness and we need to reach and hit this fight where it needs to be hit, at the people that are implementing these rules. Not getting caught up in wars with the symptoms of these rules. But we need to also tell people about the overall disease.
Evidence shows that when refugees are active participants in host communities, and when they have the right to work legally, local economies grow. Today, more than half of the world's refugees live in urban settings. When given the chance to live in settlements and villages and cities rather than camps, refugees have an opportunity to contribute to the development of the communities that host them.
Because if people do not know about the overall disease, we will never ever find a cure. When you need 200 stitches, a plaster ain't gonna work. So this is a topic that is probably so complex. I'm not sure how many different episodes this will be split into, but I'm going to try and slow it down and walk through it as slowly as possible. One of the things with this document is that it never ever mentions the plight of the population that this will affect. It literally puts the plight of the migrants in a plight of sympathy. Never mentions about the social issues that will happen never even mentions about making the migrants aware of the social conditions in which it's coming to. As in, it never mentions fully about assimilation into each independent country, because it almost makes out as if it's not about that. What this is about is the other way round. It's making the countries that are in the passageway of the migration flow acquiesce to the migrant flow in all dimensions and all aspects. I mean, this is how they work here, these guys. They work on such a broad level. This is implemented from a regional to a local to a national to a global level. It's hit on every medium. It's actively financed to work into place, promoted in the way of a Trojan horse, gives the impression that this is the way the world is steering and you would be better on this side of the fence, without fully weighing up the consequences to what the actual advert is all about, the consequences for humanity. When you consider one or two key words that get mentioned in this document, it's all about migrant treaties, Barcelona Treaty, the New York Declaration, the Marrakesh Declaration. They're all working hand in hand to litigiously allow and facilitate in this, which is the biggest mass migration the world has ever seen. Another key word that it mentions in regards to not being a burden and saving humanity, keeping humanity at a safe level in balance with nature. 10 years ago, people would tell you to put your foil hat on. This document tells you right there, I've seen this type of statement before. Now, that was on the Georgia Guidestones.
Next, we turn to the town of Elberton, Georgia, the granite capital of the world. Oddly enough, the town that makes a living through death is also the home of what some consider the most threatening monument in America.
It was back in 1979 when a stranger came to Elberton, Georgia. Now, Elberton, Georgia is on the eastern part of Georgia, very close to the South Carolina border. And this stranger said that he was part of a secret group, and they wanted to build a great granite monument.
This was done by a guy who gave a pseudonym, came in, paid cash, had this company set these things up in 1980, called himself R.C. Christian, but that's not his real name. It says right on the stones, a pseudonym.
Nobody knows his real name because that isn't his real name. Nobody knows who put the money up other than this fictional individual. Nobody knows what secret group he represents. Of course, Elberton mines granite. They make tombstones there. And they had the facilities to mine the granite. But he gave very, very specific directions as to how this was to be built, so that it would always be aligned in certain ways, so you'd always be able to see the North Star, so it would be aligned with the moon and with the various phases of the sun. And very, very similar to the Stonehenge that they have in England. So the Stonehenge was a Druidic monument. This was to be the American Stonehenge, or it's known as the Georgia Guidestones. And on each one of the Guidestones is this message in a different language, actually 8 different languages, are the 10 commandments that come from the dark side. And the first one is maintain the world population at 500 million in constant balance with nature, which doesn't sound too bad until you realize that we've got over 6 billion people in the world. And if we're going to maintain the world population at 500 million in constant balance with nature, we're going to have to kill off about 90% or more of the world's population.
Now, this is the point where people may laugh because that word or that statement has just been mentioned. But if you've not looked it up on a serious level, I suggest you do. But regardless of whether you believe in the Georgia Guidestone and the true edicts of what it's trying to portray to people, which is a depopulation of the world, we do know there are enough elites that are trying to facilitate that. This document proves it, as well as several other elites over the years.
question has been asked many times how the people who are perpetrating these things expect to do this and make it last. And the answer to that is that you steal a generation of children and you indoctrinate them so that they accept these ideas and they become global citizens in the coming global village.
UNESCO came out and declared 2005 to 2015 the decade of education for sustainable development. But they go on to say that it will encompass the 40 chapters of Agenda 21. That is your federal national curriculum. The entire purpose of second grade social studies is to transfer loyalty from the family to the government and teach them about sustainable economic consumption. Students construct their own understandings of reality and realize that objective reality is not knowable. So why bother? The truth is, the truth which keeps men free is being suppressed in order to prop up the attitude training agenda. And it moves on. This is our new math called connected mathematics. Standard 3 tells us that students learn that mathematics is man-made, that it is arbitrary, and good solutions are arrived at by consensus. Most of us assume 2 plus 2 is always going to equal 4. You're wrong. We might reach a new consensus. How well does it work? Well, they tell you in the teacher's guide in the back, it tells us that because the curriculum doesn't emphasize arithmetic computations done by hand, some students may not do as well on tests assessing computational skills. We believe such a trade-off in the favor of CMP is very much to the student's advantage in the world of work. Our children are mathematically illiterate on purpose. How do I know on purpose? Why isn't this just a basic bad idea? Because the Sustainable Development Plan tells us so. Generally, more highly educated people who have higher incomes consume more resources than poorly educated people who tend to have lower incomes. In this case, more education increases the threat to sustainability. In this case, more education increases the threat to sustainability.